Hello YouTube, in this video I made a video game for the Ludum Dare 50 game jam, and let's just say things didn't go as planned. In case you don't know, a game jam is a weekend where you make a game from scratch that goes along with a specific theme. Got it? Cool. Let's rewind all the way back to the start of the game jam, Friday, April 1st. So the theme was just announced as Delay the Inevitable, and first impressions were, not so good. I couldn't think of anything that was original and doable at the same time. And oh yeah, that's another constraint you have with the game jam. You have to make sure your game is small enough so where it can be made in a weekend, which in hindsight I could have done a better job with. Starting with the planning, I first came up with some broad theme ideas that corresponded with inevitability. I eventually came up with something that seems pretty fun, but it's pretty late right now, and I have this weird feeling tomorrow is going to be a long day, so I'm gonna go to sleep. Alright, so before we start making the game, I just wanted to let you guys know what my 100% achievable plans are. So the game has the player moving around a procedurally generated maze-like map, trying to flee from an ever-expanding circle, which will inevitably consume the whole map. The player can then kill some bad guys to get money to use the money as upgrades to control the circle, thus delaying the inevitable. So let's jump right into it and start with some movement. The way I wanted this to happen is having the player only looking at the cursor and moving back and forth when the player presses W and S. A little bit of trigonometry later, and now we have a player that can look around. Now we just have to get him moving, which should be even easier. And I was right. This was just going so well, there is no chance that anything can go wrong. No chance. Now this is all pretty cool, but I want the player to be centered on the screen and have the camera follow along with him. So using this Unity package called Cinemachine, I was able to do just that super quickly. But wait, isn't there supposed to be a big circle that you're trying to flee from? Of course, so after a little bit of programming, we've got it. But unfortunately, I had to stop right now to go do some real life stuff, and I wouldn't really be able to resume until about like 10 p.m. But right now, I think I'm in a pretty good spot. It's a little later than I thought, but in my defense, I was doing an extremely important part of the game development process. Playing other video games for inspiration, of course. But maybe I just got a teeny bit too inspired and lost track of time. Now we have about 1 day left because I can't really do anything on Monday, and I am considerably behind schedule. And because I'm just filled with responsible choices, I'm just not gonna sleep tonight. What could possibly go wrong? So what's next for the game? Well, we've got some options. Option 1, we can work on enemies, which are basically essential to the game. Option 2, we can work on money and upgrades, which are also very important. Or option 3, we can work on making the procedurally generated maze-like map, which would be really cool to have, but isn't necessarily essential. Well, obviously we're going to be working on the stuff that's actually important. Come on, Will. This isn't a hard decision. Shh, don't listen to him. We have plenty of time left. Trust me. You've got all day tonight and all day tomorrow to work on the game. You'll finish in no time. And I believe in you. Well, I'm just being realistic. There is no way you'll be able to finish by Monday. Trust me, it's better to just get all the necessary stuff done now while you can. No, that's the problem, you see. The procedural generation would be so cool, and it will also motivate you to get even more done. Think about just how much more productive you'd be with that time pressure. I think you've got this, no problem. Okay, I see your point. Okay then, well, when you're falling asleep tomorrow night at your keyboard, don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, so how am I gonna generate this maze? Well, I can first generate a ton of cell objects and arrange them in a grid, which we can use as something called a graph and use this algorithm from graph theory called depth-first search. So this depth-first search algorithm works by picking a random neighboring unvisited cell and then repeating the process until we can't. Then we backtrack until we can, and then we repeat this whole process until the whole maze is filled out. From there, we can generate a bunch of tile prefabs along the path that the algorithm found. And about 4 hours later, we're just about done. We have a fully randomized map that changes each time you play. Now this is awesome, but there's just one part that I'm not really sold on. I feel it's just way too cramped and crowded, so I want to open up some of the walls. So what I can do is randomly pick about 20 of the 100 tiles and basically just make it completely wide open. And boom, once that was all done, the map was totally complete. So I'm gonna go take a little break and then do a little bit more real life stuff, so it'll probably be a little bit till I resume. Alright, so now it's time to start working on stuff the game actually needs. Well, because basically tonight and tomorrow night are the only times that I'll be able to actually work on the game. And to say I'm on a tight schedule is a massive understatement. So in order to finish, tonight has got to be another all-nighter. It's not ideal, but it's my only option. So let's start off by working on some shooting and some enemies. About 45 minutes later, I made the player able to shoot 2 types of bullets, one small bullet that he can shoot faster, and one big bullet that pierces but shoots a lot slower. And I also made some red squares as enemies. There are 2 types of enemies. The big enemies that have a lot more health but move slower, and the small enemies that are one-shot but move a lot faster. Right now, I have yet to write any sort of spawner script, so everything you see here has been manually placed. So remember that spawner script I said I didn't have? Well, now it's time to start making one. Wait, what, you think I'm tired? No. I'm fine. I'm totally fine to do another all-nighter. Don't you worry. If it means getting this game done, I'd stay up for a week straight if I had to. So, oh my god. So let me get back to coding. It'll be done before I even know it. Alright, so there's no possible way I'll be able to stay up all night again. So that means there's no real chance of me finishing by the deadline tomorrow. I really wanted to finish this game, but unfortunately, I just don't have the time. So, I had to quit. But wait. I just remembered something I saw on the website. I could have swore I saw an extra time option that was like brand new for this game jam. Oh, yeah, right there. See? We're still in this. Okay, so the new plan is to finish up at some later date, which I can do now with the extra time option. I'm a little bummed though that I couldn't finish by the main deadline, but I'm just glad this whole weekend wasn't for nothing. So after 3 full days passed, I was finally ready to resume the game. Now that I was using the extra time option, I didn't feel pressured by time to keep working 24/7, which was good for me mentally, but it did give me a bunch of excuses to justify my procrastination. But nonetheless, I got the spawner script kinda working. I say kinda because some enemies can still spawn in walls, but that's a problem for future will. I also implemented one of the other core features for the game. When the enemies hit you, you don't die, a new circle spawns in a random position, which significantly adds to the difficulty in the later stages of the game. Now we only have one thing left that the game desperately needs: money and the upgrade shop. So now, after a tiny bit of coding, we can now get money by killing enemies and see our total on the screen. And well, now it's time to make this money actually do something. And about an hour later, I came up with this decently looking shop UI that gets brought up with tab. The upgrades are split up into 2 different parts: player upgrades and circle control. The player upgrades make the player faster, do more damage, and shoot faster, while the circle control upgrades pauses all of the circles, slows the expansion rate of all the circles, and cuts each circle's radius in half. The player can buy 3 ranks of each upgrade, getting more and more expensive each time. After many more long days of school, I finally regained the time and motivation to finish this game up. Right now, we've got everything necessary in, but I want to do some more stuff to make the game more fun. Starting with reworking the enemies. Right now, they can spawn in walls, walk through walls, move predictably, and overall just aren't that interesting. And about an hour later, they can now launch themselves at you, so you have to worry about dodging them instead of just running away. Now, another thing I think the game needs is a mini-map. And all things considered, this should not have been that hard to implement, but I went about this in the most inefficient way possible. But at least it's there and functional. And the minimap made the game, particularly in the later stages, significantly easier and more fun. So I think it was a good addition. At this point, pretty much everything I wanted in the game was in, so that's good. But I wanted to make it even more fun by adding some juice to it. The first part in the 4-part Operation Juice is some sprites. I wanted to first make the squares look a little bit more interesting, and second, the background too. So a little while later, things are looking a lot better. Now, onto the second part of Operation Juice, particles. And I did this by making 2 particle systems. 1, a trail for when the player moves, and 2, some little blood effects when the player shoots an enemy. Now it's time for the third part, which is pretty simple, screen shake. This just makes the game feel a lot more intense and responsive. And finally, we're on the last part, some sound effects. And once that was all in, Operation Juice was done, and the game was at least twice as fun to play. It's amazing how much more fun the game feels after just a couple of tiny improvements. Right now, there's nothing stopping the player from just sitting in a corner all game and just shooting enemies, because that's the only way he'll make money. And as a responsible game developer, it's my duty to nudge the player into a more fun way of playing. I did this by scattering coins all around the map for the player to go and grab. And upon gathering the coins, he gets a significant amount of money. Once the player grabs a coin, a new one randomly spawns, so he will never run out of destinations. At this point, I'm thinking about submitting, but before I did that, I made some quick balance changes along with a tutorial, a main menu screen, and death screen. The submission wasn't stressful at all, mainly because I had a whole other week before I had to actually submit the game. But anyways, you can view the submission page with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. If you wanted to play the game, just go to the submission page and use the HTML5 version. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know. I doubt I'll actually go in and update it, but I'd really like to know so I can improve as a game developer. I've also been thinking about dipping my toes into some mobile game development, so who knows, maybe I'll port this over to mobile in the future. If you want to see more Game Jam videos, click right down here. And if you want to see a video that YouTube thinks you'll really enjoy, click right here. And if you want to see fun game development content just like this in the future, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you'll never miss an upload. Thanks again. See you soon.